1 Samuel chapter 20. I don't want to get deep into it tonight. I've already driven Dwayne and Tosha mad talking about it, I think. But one of the things as you read the scripture, you have to try and answer some difficult questions sometimes. And as you study different stories, it will come up. It comes up in Rahab. It comes up tonight. I'm not going to ask you to say which one you believe, but there's a lot of conjecture even among so-called spiritual people to the question, is it ever okay to lie? So some people say no, some people say in certain circumstances, etc., right? So there's and I think that's something you have to really try and figure out. Is it ever okay to lie? And of course, Rahab comes up in different situations. And I could bore you with all the things I've read this week about all the different kind of viewpoints and that. I believe, I'm from the stance like it's never okay to lie, and there's many reasons for that. And if you want to discuss that, just buy me a meal and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. But part of it is it's a slippery slope, right? Part of it is if you tell your kids it's okay to lie sometimes, then they're probably going to abuse that, and that becomes really sticky. Why we say we have to lie is kind of where I get antsy. Like Rahab. People say Rahab had to lie, otherwise the spies are dead. But my deal is, because you tell the truth, I don't think God's just going to zap them dead. Like God can intervene. Sometimes we try and intervene ourselves, and I get it. And in the moment, who knows what we do? I get it. But like I read this story, and Corrie ten Boom would hide the Jews from the Nazis, and she at times lied. Her sister took the approach that she would never lie. People got mad at her for it. People didn't understand it, but she made up her mind that she would never lie. Okay, so then a knock comes at the door, and they had Jewish people hidden under their dinner table, under a trapdoor under the table. That's where they were hiding them. So the Germans come in, and they ask the obvious question. Do you have Jews in your house? You can see now why lots of people rationalize and say, I told a lie. To protect. So in that situation, I told a lie, but it was better than them dying, right? And I think that's the assumption I fight against, is that who said they were going to die? Like, we automatically assume if we tell the truth, that something really bad is going to happen. Here's what happened. You've got to understand, the table is right there, right on the trap door. Obviously, there's like a rug or whatever, so you can't see it. The guy says, is there any Jews in your house? And Corrie ten Boom's sister, I can't remember her name, maybe it's Anne, I can't remember, says, yes, and everyone's ticked off. She says, they're under the table. Which they were, under the table. Now, she didn't fully explain what under the table meant, but she said, yes, there are Jews in her house, they're under the table. The story goes that the German guy thought she was being snarky with him, thought she was being sarcastic, and the end result was he got embarrassed, the article that I read said he was he was kind of taken back by her sarcasm, by her brashness, and he refused to look under the table because it would embarrass him. They checked every part of that house apart from under the table, and they never found the Jews. He said they're under the table, and he refused to look because he didn't want to be made a fool of. I tell you that story to tell you, most people would probably say, I have to lie to protect the Jews. But when God, you're never going to lose by telling the truth. I fight the assumption that every time we tell the truth, that means something bad's going to happen. Like Rahab's this special one, right? She had to lie. She didn't have to lie. Like, I don't buy that because if she said to yes, they're in my house or whatever, God can take care of that. We just read last week that Saul was coming after David. with different people, and God's protected him, right? Now, can you tell the truth when something what we call bad happened? Yeah. You don't know what's going to happen. But that's a whole long theological thing. I say that because we're going to approach it tonight. So when I'm studying this, I start with that. My opinion is it's never okay to lie. And again, I'm not trying to say that's easy or we wouldn't struggle with that. Again, if we're hiding Jewish people and they come and knock on the door, it's very hard, to be honest, right? But also, David, how sure are we that David's going to be king? What's the percentage? Okay. If David's going to be king, and God has said it, God has anointed him, God has made it clear, God has taken the kingdom from Saul to give to David, what are the chances of him dying before he becomes king? And God has proven this over and over. Saul has already chucked 2 spears at him. Nothing happened. Saul has put men outside of his house. Nothing happened. 3 sets of people came after David to try and attack him and kill him. Guess what happened? The king came after David and he ends up laying naked on the floor prophesying. The whole point is that, look, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback. It's easy not to understand fully what's happening in your life or be scared or whatever. But there's no way that David can pass. Like David has been anointed king. This is God's plan. Just like with Peter. He told Peter, in your old age you'll die. That's what he promises him, right? So then when you're young, you're safe. The upside of God telling you you're going to die at an old age is that when you're middle age, you're good. Whatever happens, you can't die. God has just promised. He doesn't change his mind. It doesn't come back like that. So David has been shown that he's safe. Again, it's much easier to read about it and not be involved in it. But God has more than with Goliath. God, how much has God told David, like, I got your back? And this is just a highlight reel. This isn't even all the information this is only the information that we have. Chapter 20, verse 1. David fled from Naioth. Okay, so we talked about last week how David had Samuel, right? And the importance of having a Samuel. And now God has protected him and provided him someone else too. Not only does he have Samuel, he has Jonathan. David has found an ally in Samuel. He's also found an ally in Jonathan. Again, he flees. And I get why he's fleeing, and I'm not saying that's wrong. But you realize you're fleeing after a king who was naked on the floor. Like God has already told him who's winning. He's already beaten Goliath. Like if David comes to you and says, should I be scared? Yeah, I get it. But God has stood up for David time and time and time again because it's his man. So he flees and he finds Jonathan. And he asks Jonathan, what have I done, he exclaimed. What is my crime? You can hear that cry, right? That's that. We do that. Like, I haven't done anything wrong, but they're after me. Well, who does that point you to? Who do you think of when that's Jesus, right? That's Jesus. And if David isn't innocent, David does some stuff wrong. Jesus never did anything wrong, and they went after him. In David, you see a lot of pictures of Jesus. And David flees, and he says to Jonathan, and God works everything out. People don't understand. Listen, you need God to understand what's going on. If you need anyone else to understand it, like if that's what you're looking for, you're in trouble. God can make anybody think anything. At this moment in time, remember there's been a previous conversation, and Saul told Jonathan, it's good, I won't kill who? I won't kill David. We've already seen that. And so Jonathan knows his dad's kind of off, but he's taking him at his word. Saul has literally told his son, I get it. Jonathan has already made his case for David, and Saul says, I won't kill him. What I'm getting at is this. Have you ever said something to someone and they just don't get it? You tell someone they're coming after me and they're like, no, they're not. You say, hey, what's wrong with so-and-so? Nothing. And they just don't get it. They don't understand. And you know, there's times in your mind, in your heart, your spirit, you know something is happening and they can't see it. They can't see it. Jonathan at this moment doesn't see it, but he's about to because God's going to show him. And so David comes, he's fleeing, he goes to Ramah, he finds Jonathan. What have I done, he exclaimed. What is my crime? You can see the kind of, we read the psalm last week. He's good, but he's got questions. How have I offended your father that he is so determined to kill me? What's the answer to that? You've been so powerfully used by God that he's jealous of you. That's the answer. The women started to sing about him and not you. It's jealousy, it's bitterness, it's envy. Hey, and by the way, if God took the kingship away from you, and he's on the run for 10 to 15 years, and then he fights, and then he gets to be king. It's a long process, And in all of this, that's the overarching thing. David isn't ready to be king yet. So you ask, why has everything happened to David? He needs training. After training, after training, after training. He's on the run for 10 years because at this moment, God has already anointed him to be king. But he's really, really young. And God could have put him in as king. There's young kings all over the place. But God knows that David needs every lesson. And you see, that's what we struggle with in life. We get impatient and God is like, you haven't learned enough yet. You're not ready. You ever been there where you thought you were ready? And now you look back and you're like, man, God, I wasn't ready. And God is training David. And so in every area about David, about enemies, about God, all this stuff. And David doesn't deserve to die, obviously. He's serving the Lord for the most part. And this is what gets you. This is the heart. I've been faithful to God and it's put me in the crosshairs. So he goes to Jonathan and he says, why is your dad so determined to kill me? David knows it. But in knowing that Saul is determined to kill him, he should also know that God is determined to protect him. So as bad as Saul wants him dead, God wants him alive. So guess who's going to win that? Now again, it's easy to stand here and pontificate on his life when you're not in it. But Saul can't outdo God. No matter how much he hates David, no matter how much he comes. And it's not like God was aloof and silent. David had many instances, many signs that you're not going anywhere. I've got you. I've got you. That's not true. See, look at verse 2. Jonathan is still not there yet. And this is what God does. God, if you need people to understand, God has a way. You ever tried talking to someone and they don't get it? But God has a way of making people think what they need to think if he needs you to think that way, if that makes sense. Jonathan's a pivotal part of this story. Jonathan's a pivotal part of God's plan. So Jonathan has to understand certain things. And right now, he says that's not true. Well, is it true? Yeah, 100% it's true. It's 100% true that Saul was determined to kill David. 100%. And Jonathan says that's not true. That's what I'm talking about. You ever had a moment like that? You're telling someone that you know something. You know by God it's true. You know by his spirit. You know by his word. You can see it with your own eye. You know it's true. And people look at you and say, that's not true. What do you mean? You're not going to die. Well, that's true. But look at what he says. He always tells me everything he's going to do, even the little things. I know my father wouldn't hide something like this from me. It just isn't so. Jonathan is confident because his dad always told him what? But Jonathan has already shown allegiance to Saul. His own daughter has shown allegiance to David rather than Saul. Saul is changing his tactics. Saul is smart enough. Saul cannot go to Jonathan and be like, by the way, tomorrow I'm killing your buddy. And so whilst the king tries to hide it, he's not really trying to hide it very well, is he? But he's not telling Jonathan. And Jonathan says, that's not right. My dad always tells me everything he's going to do, even the little things. I know my father wouldn't hide something like this from me. It just isn't so. Sometimes we put way too much stock in other people. They'd never do that. Watch out. Watch out. They'd never treat me like that. In the right circumstances, you don't have a clue what we do. Then David took an oath before Jonathan and said, your father knows perfectly well about our friendship. So he has said to himself, I won't tell Jonathan. Why should I hurt him? But I swear to you. Now this is really interesting. I swear to you that I'm only a step away from death. I swear it by the Lord and by your own soul. That's how David feels. I'm one step away from what? If I make a bad move or I feel like Saul is right on my back, I'm right close to dying. Now, you understand why he's saying that. I mean, he's had people coming after him. He's had spears yucked at him. So technically that's true. But spiritually, is it true? Oh, listen, how many steps does David take before he dies? Millions. He's not one step away from death. But it feels like it. We've said that. Maybe you've said in hospital, I'm dying. You're not. It just feels like you are. Right? That's how he feels. He's getting attacked by the enemy. I don't think he's lying that he's like, but again, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback. But if God has called you to be king and you're not king yet, you're all right. When Jesus says to the disciples certain promises, certain things, they can take it to the bank. Verse 4, tell me what I can do to help you, Jonathan exclaimed. Who do they really need to move? Who has to move in this situation? God does. Does God have a plan and a purpose? Let me ask you this. Has God's plan and purpose ever be concoct a story, tell a lie, and that will be what we do? David and Jonathan need to do something. David needs Jonathan to understand. David needs some kind of like help with security. I mean, they have these spiritual needs. And God has put them together. But sometimes we come up with these schemes and God works through those schemes. But they're not what he would have done and could have done for us. God uses this scheme. God uses what they're going to do. But what I'm saying is, I think God had a different way of doing it. I don't think God's end game was please concoct a story and tell a lie. Now, what would have happened? Who would have? I don't know. But we make these plans. We're like, hey, we have to do this. Instead of like, God, hold on. What is God telling us to do? Right? What is your answer? What are we to do? And he says to Jonathan, I need your help. David replied, tomorrow we celebrate the new moon festival. So in their tradition, every month they had this kind of sacrificial day. They had this holy day. They had this day set apart. The moon would come. They would celebrate the first day of the month. It was a tradition in Israel, this new moon festival. They would celebrate the first day of the month. And if the moon couldn't be seen, if the moon wasn't what it should be, they do it the second day, which seems to be happening in this story. So the first day of the month, there would be this kind of religious, set-apart day, and they would celebrate a new month, a new beginning. The moon would have an impact on that, and they would celebrate. And so David says, this is our moment. Tomorrow we've got a new moon. And at the new moon festival, your dad's going to be there, you're going to be there, and he's going to think, what? I'm going to be there. And so David jumps on this opportunity of, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow. I've always eaten with the king on this occasion. Every month, David is there. Every month, David is celebrating new moon with the king. But tomorrow I'll hide in the field and stay there until the evening of the third day. I'm going to go, I'm going to hide until the third day. This is all their understanding of what's going on. If your father asks where I am, tell him I asked permission to go home to Bethlehem for an annual family sacrifice. You've always eaten at new moon, but now you're not. Do you see? It might not seem big to you. It might not seem relevant to you. He's just told a lie. Why is he telling a lie? What's the fundamental reason he's telling the lie? He's taking control of the situation because waiting for an answer from God seems like... I mean, why would he tell a lie in this? He's figured it all out, right? And what I'm saying is, I don't believe for a second that God said, make up this story. Make up a story. Like if someone says make up a story, I don't think that's the Lord, do you? And again, if that's true, if you can make up stories, you really want to teach your kids that? You imagine coming to your kids and saying, it's okay to tell a story when you really need to. The problem with that is who knows the level, and your kid's idea of when I needed to tell a story and you might be wholly different. Totally different. Like, where's the end to that? And how do you get on at them if you've taught them you can tell us? Again, it's not a massive, and David is imperfect. David's like us. But he says, tomorrow we celebrate. I've always eaten with the king. If your father asks where I am, tell him I asked permission to go home to Bethlehem. Now you've put Jonathan in an awkward position because you're asking, it's not just you telling a lie, but you're asking who? If he says, fine, you'll know all is well. David's not going to be there. If Saul doesn't seem to think it's a big deal, he may be calmed down. But if he is angry and loses his temper, you'll know he's determined to kill me. Look what David is doing. David is trying to set it up so that Jonathan twigs how bad Saul hates him. David is trying to show to Jonathan, your dad is in a really, really, really bad place. Who can show him that? God can. God can. But sometimes it's easier to take control and do it yourself, right? That's what needs to come. Jonathan has to be convinced that his dad is going crazy. Look at what he says. He says, fine, you will know all is well, but if he's angry and loses his temper, you will know he is determined to kill me. So show me this loyalty as my sworn friend. This is really weird to me. Remember back a few chapters ago, Jonathan took his robe and all that and has been on board with David being king. They've already pledged allegiance to each other. Jonathan has already said, I know you're going to be king and I'm good with it. Their friendship is about as cemented as it's going to be. But all the way through this chapter, both of them are like, are we good? Are you good? Am I good? Are you going to kill me? Do we have a deal? I mean, if you've been married a long time and your husband comes home and like, are you going to betray me? It's a weird question. Are we good? Well, I ain't killed you yet, so I guess we are. But do you notice what's happened? I'm convinced of this. Do you know why? And this is really, really important. Why now are they starting to have some kind of weird kind of doubt or trepidation about even each other? Because they've both willingly now taken part in a lie. And if you lie with me, you might just lie against me. Right? I mean, if I've concocted a story and you and me are lying, why would I have confidence that you're not going to lie? It's all a trap. I mean, Rob a bank with someone and then see how safe you are with it, and then be comfortable around them stealing your money. I often wonder, like people who have affairs and stuff, what happens? How could you ever, if you break your marriage to run off with someone else, how do you trust them? They're complicit together, they're lying together, and now throughout this whole story, there's like, hey, are we good? Are you going to do this? Like before, there wasn't that problem, but now, this is why this whole thing gets, look at what it says. And look, Jonathan and David love each other, they're going to help each other, but there's this kind of woven like bit of insecurity. Look at what it says. Show me this loyalty as my sworn friend. It's like you swore it. We're friends, right? For we made a solemn pact before the Lord. We made a pact before the Lord. Listen, if someone makes a pact before the Lord, what else do you need from them? Like if they're gonna not fear the Lord and go against that pact, you've got no chance. Right? Look at what it says. Or kill me yourself. I'd rather you kill me than your dad. For we made a solemn pact before the Lord, or kill me yourself. If I have sinned against your father, then kill me. But please don't betray me to him. Isn't that, would you like that if someone that you were really close with said that? That's kind of, like, again, if your spouse says, please don't betray me, what do you mean? Like, why do you think I'm going to betray you? Like, haven't I shown you that I'm good? Verse 9, never, Jonathan exclaimed. And it's true, he won't. But there's that weird tension. Part of it is David has no one else to trust. He's got Samuel and Jonathan, and that's a pretty hard place to be. I mean, if you can only trust two people in the whole world, I get it, it's a rough situation. You know that if I had the slightest notion my father was planning to kill you, I would tell you at once. That's true. And David asked, how will I know whether you or not your father is angry? Come out to the field with me, Jonathan replied. No one really knows where this is, but they knew. They obviously had this place. And they went out there together. And Jonathan told David, I promise by the Lord, the God of Israel, that by this time tomorrow, or the next day at the latest, I will talk to my father. I will let you know at once how he feels about you. If he speaks favorably about you, I'll let you know. Right? So Jonathan has just promised. On the second day, or at latest the third day, I'll come, I'll find you, and I'll let you know. If my father is good with you, I will tell you. Verse 13, but if he is angry and wants you killed, may the Lord strike me and even kill me if I don't warn you so you can escape and live. That's both an amazing statement of a best friend and almost this battle of what do I have to do to make you up? To trust me. He makes another vow. As surely, and the problem is people make that vow and they don't mean it at all. Jonathan means it. Look at what he says. May the Lord be with, but if he's angry and wants you killed, may the Lord strike me and even kill me if I don't warn you so that you can escape and live. And then he says something really heartbreaking. May the Lord be with you as he used to be with my father. Jonathan knows that God's Spirit was on his father. Jonathan knows that Saul, for a moment, had everything in front of him. And God was going to use him, and God had used him, and God put his favor on Saul, and God had anointed Saul, and the Spirit of God was on Saul. And look at what he prays for his friend. Look at what he tells him. May the Lord be with you as he used to be with my father. That's an amazing encouragement. But that is really sad, isn't it? You imagine as a child saying, I hope the Spirit of God is with you like he used to be with my father. And Jonathan understands that the Spirit of God is it. May the Lord be with you as he used to be with my father. So Jonathan admits and knows that his father is on the slide. And here's what's crazy. This is really interesting. You ready? Obviously, normally, how do you replace the next king normally? I mean, with Saul, who was going to be king originally? Okay, why? Why Jonathan? Because it's his son, right? So you go down the line, son, whatever. Now, here's the problem. We're not going to Jonathan, we're going to who? Okay, so whenever the kings didn't go through the line and went to someone else, there was something they did. Obviously, if your son's going to take over, all is good, right? But for whatever reason, if the kingship is skipping now your family and going to someone else's family, what did they do? They killed everybody in that family so that no one would have a right or an idea that they could claim the throne. In other words, in every other situation, if David became king and Jonathan's still around, Jonathan and everybody in that line would be executed because the king didn't want to fight that. The king didn't want someone to say, that's my line. They just killed them. That was protocol. That was normal protocol. Now again, if it's your son, that's different. But when it went outside of your family, so now I'm king. In a normal situation, Jonathan would be a what? Would be a threat. And so they killed their family so that no one could have a right. And so that's why Jonathan says, and may you treat me with the faithful love of the Lord as long as I live. You see, now he's asking for it. I need you to love me like the Lord, faithfully like the Lord as long as I live. But if I die, and Jonathan will die, but if I die, what does he say? What's on his mind? Treat my family with this faithful love, even when the Lord destroys all your enemies from the face of the earth. Jonathan says, I know that God is going to allow you to wipe your enemies off the face of the earth. But if I die, do me a favor. Look out for my family. And you know what we'll find later on? Crippled, how do you say it? Mephibosheth. That's a tongue twist. You might have to preach that one. If I can't say the dude's name, it's going to be a long night. But there's crippled Mephibosheth, who's Jonathan's son and Saul's grandson. And David comes and says, is there anyone in Jonathan's family still around? Because I made a promise. And this crippled son of Jonathan is taken in by the king, David, because Jonathan asked him to look after his. It's not normal protocol. But you see how there's this weird, you're going to love me, right? You're going to love me. And I think that stems from, A, it's a scary situation, but B, if you start telling untruths together and making these weird things, that's the cause of that. That's the cost of that. Treat my family with this faithful love, even when the Lord destroys all your enemies from the face of the earth. Jonathan understands David's anointing. Jonathan's not upset about David. Jonathan knows that David is going to be king. And he said, because I know you're going to be king. Jonathan is not. Look, how sure is Jonathan that David's going to be king? Yeah. So what sense does it make that you're going to die, that David's going to die? Now, as soon as you become king, then maybe that kind of goes away. So Jonathan made a solemn pact with David. May the Lord destroy all your enemies. And verse 17. And Jonathan made David reaffirm his vow of friendship again, for Jonathan loved David as he loved himself. Jonathan loved David as he loved. That's the whole thing, isn't it? Love your neighbor as yourself. Love God with everything you have and your neighbor as yourself. And Jonathan's mimicking it. And verse 17 says, reaffirm my vow of friendship. That's good in a way. How many reavowments of friendship or love do you need in your marriage? Like if you need him to come home, you love me, right? You do love me? That can't be normal or healthy, can it? Like, are we good? Do you love me? Do you love me? You're going to cheat on me? You love me? Come on, man. And Jonathan is going to do it. Jonathan is godly. Jonathan says, I love you like I love myself. And Jonathan said, tomorrow we celebrate the new moon festival. You'll be missed, but when your place at the table is empty, well, you'll be missed when your place at the table is empty. The day after tomorrow, go to the place where you hid before. Go to the place where you what? Hid before. Wait, so we've done this before, and how is David still alive? How is David still alive? We told a lie. No. God is protecting you every single time. All the time. The day I will come out, listen to this. David has said, like we got a chance with this new moon festival. And Jonathan says, I've got it. You're going to go and hide and wait there by the stone pile. The day after tomorrow, toward evening, go to the place where you hid before and wait there by the stone pile. I'll come out and shoot 3 arrows to the side of the stone pile as though I was shooting at a target. He's going to take a boy with him, and he's going to act like he's taking shooting practice. I will send a boy to bring the arrows back. So he's going to go out in this field. He knows Jonathan is hiding. It's all set up. The boy's not going to know what's happening. And Jonathan is going to shoot the arrows. And he's either going to shoot it to the side or he's going to shoot it long. Look at what he says. I'll send a boy to bring the arrows back. If you hear me tell him they're on this side, then you will know as surely as the Lord lives that all is well and there is no trouble. So when Jonathan shoots his arrows, he's either going to put it to the side or he's going to go long. Right? Wherever the target is, he's going left or he's going straight. And he says, if I tell the boy, now imagine this, David's got to be there like, and Jonathan is going to yell to the boy, look at what it says. If I say they're on this side, then you will know as surely as the Lord lives that all is well and there is no trouble. This is code. If I say go to the side, you're good. But if I tell him go farther, the arrows are still ahead of you, it will mean that you must leave immediately, for the Lord is sending you away. It's almost like, look, we're not going to be able to talk, so this is the code. But you know what's really weird? They do talk. So why, I don't quite understand why they have to set up this elaborate ruse. He could have just hidden and Jonathan they end up talking. How much longer does it say, dude, my dad's mad, run? I'll show you in a minute, but it seems like an elaborate ruse. Like, can't I just tell you? Maybe it's, well, I need an excuse to be in the field. All right, there might be reasons. But if I tell him, verse 22, go farther, the arrows are still ahead of you, then it will mean that you must leave immediately, for the Lord is sending you away. Look, they understand that. The Lord is sending them away. They even understand that. They understand that the Lord is over all of this. And may the Lord make us keep our promises to each other, for he has witnessed them. Here we go again. May the Lord keep our promises. Verse 24. So David hid himself in the field. All right. So are you calm or not in the field? David has more than enough evidence to be in that field and be okay. God, we spoke about on Sundays, God meets with his people so they will be what he needs them to be. Look, physically, is David going to be a bit in trepidation? Yeah. But if you could go back in time, what would you tell David? Wouldn't you tell him, dude, you're going to be king. It's going to be, God's got you. Look, remember when was it, hold on, this Saul that you're scared about. What was the last time you set your eyes on Saul, what was the old boy doing? He was laying nude on the floor because God put him down there. That should give you some confidence. What happened to the bully the last time he came around? God just knocked him out for me. I get that it's not, maybe it's easy. I get that he's in the field and he's waiting to see. But God is all over him, and God has done all this stuff. And he's got it now. See, regardless of what you do, you still have to have faith. You still have to trust. He's still got to be in a field on his own. So whether it's Jonathan, it's God or bust. Like if God doesn't help him, he is dead. Right? And look at what it says. So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon festival began, the king sat down to eat. He sat at his usual place against the wall, with Jonathan sitting opposite him and Abner beside him. But David's place was what? Saul didn't say anything about it that day, for he said to himself, something must have made David ceremonially unclean. That's kind of funny. Saul, who's really messed up, says David probably is unclean, and that's why he's not here. So for day one, he just plays it off. No big deal. But when David's place was empty again the next day, and by the way, isn't that like God to extend this thing? Like if you're having to wait in faith in a field by stones, you think God's going to respond quickly or let you think things through a minute? This is all part of training. This is King Training 101. All right, so when David's place was empty again the next day, Saul asked Jonathan, why hasn't the son of Jesse been here for the meal either yesterday or today? What's the truth? You're trying to kill him. That's the truth, right? So if he says you're trying to kill him, is that the story over? Is David done? Jonathan replied, David earnestly asked me if he could go to Bethlehem. Let me go, for we are having a family sacrifice. My brother demanded that I be there. It's a good job they didn't have cell phones, ain't it? How's the sacrifice? What? How's David doing? I don't know. I hadn't seen him. And by the way, the irony of this, to show you that when you lie and when you do your own thing, you think you have it covered. What were they not wanting to, what was the worst thing to do? What's the worst thing to do? Is make Saul what? Make Saul mad. So look what their concoction came up with. Why hasn't the son of Jesse been here for the meal either yesterday or today? Saul knows. And you know what Saul knows more than anything? Saul knows that God is against him. Saul knows that. That's why he's like a scared little kid, because he know on a lie detector test, he knows he's wrong, he knows he's lost, he knows he can't find David. That's why he's hacked off. He can't beat him. I mean, the guy has just been on the floor. God has already shown him, Saul, you're not winning this. But God allows Saul to keep coming back and back because David keeps needing that lesson. So look what happens. So please let me go to see my brother. That's why he isn't here at the king's table. Saul boiled with rage at who? And you can read what it says. He literally says, you stupid son of a whore. That's what he says. There's different versions. Some versions are even worse than that. This is a friendlier version. Think about how now we're bringing mom into this. If you want to know how mad Saul is, he swore at him. And Saul said, so what they try, do you think I don't know that you want him to be king in your place? Shaming yourself and your mother. Saul knows. Saul is bitter. Why is Saul bitter? Because he knows Jonathan is fine with him not being king. As long as that son of Jesse is alive, you'll never be king. Why is that a messed up statement? What? What part did I miss? Yeah, shaming yourself and your mother. And then he says, listen to the statement and listen. See, this is what I'm saying. When we come up with these, like, you can see as you read it, I'm sure if my life was in the book, you could read it and say, that. Look at what he says. Listen to how messed up Saul is. Listen to what he says. As long as that son of Jesse is alive, you'll never be king. Is that true? It's not true, though. Jonathan is never going to be king. God's never anointed Jonathan to be king. Even if God, you can't kill David, but even if you could, who said Jonathan, it's already skipped to David. He's already said, I'm going to take the kingdom from you and your family. Jonathan was never, ever, ever going to be king. And Jonathan was fine with that. But his dad was what? But do you see the logic? If I kill David, you'll be king. Fool yourself if you want, but that's not true at all. Now go and get him so I can kill him. Why should he be put to death? Jonathan asked his father. See, this is a moment now. This is like, are you going to pick me or your buddy? Are you going to pick me or him? And really it's, are you going to pick the Lord or are you going to pick... Why should he be put to death? There's a question. Saul doesn't want to answer that because he has no answer for that. And here to my point. Jonathan is going to die later, but not now. And God reinforces this point. They've tried to do this whole scheme to keep David out of what? Out of danger. And unwittingly what they've done is put Jonathan in the firing line. And Saul is so mad. Look what the Bible says. He hurled his spear at Jonathan, intending to kill him. Saul, you think Saul was pretty good at throwing spears? If you read this story, he's not very good, is he? Why is he 0 for 3? Honestly, how did Goliath get a little stone and Saul can't whack anybody with a spear? It's not his glaucoma. It's not his Why? You understand, right? This is my point. That the spears kept missing him because God wasn't ready for Jonathan to die. So that if a Saul stands right in front of me and yucks a spear, God can somehow do whatever he wants to do. Jonathan cannot be killed until God says what? Now again, when you're looking at a spear coming at you, it might not be easy to be like, glory, you can't kill me, I get it. But look, he intends to kill his own son. Now if you want, remember what David wanted Jonathan to know how secure, how psychologically well his father was. I think he just got his answer. He's so clinically insane that he's ready to kill me. Forget you, he's ready to kill me. Now what does Jonathan do? Does Jonathan run away now? Does Jonathan hide? It's all a mess. Saul hurled his spear, intended to kill him. You think Jonathan was like, that was lucky? That's God again saying what? I got you. So Jonathan realized at last that his father was really determined to kill David. Jonathan left the table in fierce anger and refused to eat on that second day of the festival. He was crushed by his father's shameful behavior toward David. He's so mad he refuses to eat at a feast. I got to be pretty mad. He's got a feast, they're celebrating, he's like, I'm not eating because of the way you treated my buddy. That buddy must be something special. I'm sure that partly is my dad tried to kill me too. The next morning, as agreed, Jonathan went out in the field and took a young boy with him to gather his arrows. Here it is. Here it is. Showdown, right? What's going to happen? Start running, he told the boy, so you can find the arrows as I shoot them. So the boy ran, and Jonathan shot an arrow what? Beyond him. When the boy had almost reached the arrow, Jonathan shouted, "The arrow is still ahead of you." And what does that mean? My dad is ticked. Run. Hurry, hurry, don't wait. So the boy quickly gathered up the arrows and ran back to who? He ran back to his master. He, of course, verse 39, suspected nothing. Only Jonathan and David understood the signal. Jonathan gave his bow and arrow to the boy and told him to take them back to town. As soon as the boy was gone, David comes out from where he had been hiding near the stone pile. So they meet. So whether Jonathan needed an excuse to leave wherever, that's what I'm not comprehending. Like, why set up this elaborate ruse? Like, they don't have time to talk. I mean, how much more time does it take to say, run? I don't know. Maybe you figure that out and tell me next week. David bowed 3 times to Jonathan with his face to the ground. Both of them were in tears as they embraced each other and said goodbye, especially David. They know what? We're not going to be hanging out anymore. And David cries even more than Jonathan. They embraced each other and said goodbye. At last, Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace. We've sworn loyalty to each other in the Lord's name. The Lord is the witness of a bond between us and our children forever." And our children forever. And David proves that's true later on. And David left. And Jonathan returns where? Jonathan has to live by faith now too, right? I mean, how much counseling do you need if your dad's just whacked a spear at you trying to kill you? It's not easy to go home. And that's where, and then in this next chapter, David's going to pull some interesting moves again. He's going to act insane. Does anyone have this? If ever there's questions, it's probably tonight. Do you have questions, thoughts? And we'll pray.